Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. This is the review of episode 4 of the second season of Marvel's Loki, currently on Disney Plus. The title of this episode, Heart of the TVA. And in this fourth episode of this show, man, my mind is split right now. I am so uh uh excited, mad, and happy, and I don't know. It's so many emotions from this episode that just got me like, what? This ended on the biggest cliffhanger you could end on in any. I mean, this was a season finale level cliffhanger at the end of this episode, and a lot took place in the final moments of episode 4 that will just haunt me for an entire week because I gotta wait another week for episode 5. And there's so many questions, good questions. It's not like, what are they doing? I mean, you can still ask those questions, but I am encouraged by it. This was an awesome episode. And if you follow my reviews of the second season of Loki, I know I sound redundant. Every week I'm saying the exact same thing. Oh, this was awesome. This was awesome. This was awesome. But I mean, I'm I'm super impressed. Whereas last week's episode 3, I had some problems with it, but this week I didn't. I loved every bit of this episode. Well, there was one or two things, but nothing to the degree that I had with last week's, and I still love that episode. But this week was so amazing. I mean, from every aspect. The direction, the acting, the writing, the tension, the tone. I mean, everything. Even throwbacks to the first episode, and a question that I had in the first episode was answered in this episode. Just out of the blue, like, wait, are we going back to that same? And we're gonna go over it, of course, but so spoilers if you haven't seen it, but it is phenomenal. Starting with Victor Timely, portrayed by Jonathan Majors, and let me get this out the way now. Jonathan Majors is phenomenal. He is phenomenal. I love the dude and everything he's in, and personal problems aside, this dude is amazing in front of the camera. Amazing. And his portrayal of Victor Timely is so well done to play this introverted 19th century inventor who is way over his head, where you know being dragged into the TVA and dealing with temporal looms and all this here. He plays it so well, and uh, this goes back to last week's episode. A lot has been made of the introduction of this character. Is he a villain? Is he a true variant of King the Conqueror? Is he something else? Uh, so there's questions. Especially going off of that post credit scene at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where we saw that scene from episode 3 played at the end of that movie. It was kind of set up that Victor Timely was going to be the villain of this season on Loki. And however, so far, he's proven to be everything but a villain. He's just this good guy from the 19th century, who agrees to help Loki and Morbius and everybody else at the TVA help stop this temporal loom from exploding and destroying the multiverse. So it was a huge shock when he died at the end. When he basically imploded at the end of this episode in the final sequence, after he made the brave decision to basically sacrifice himself at the end anyway to go out in this radiation, the way the radiation was looming off of that loom. And he made the ultimate sacrifice. And I thought that was uh, admirable. I was like, okay, this is cool. But even though you kind of knew when when he said when Loki said he was gonna go, and then Victor Timely said, no, it must be me. And I knew then that okay, he's gonna probably die. But I really thought he was gonna turn. That's what I really was thinking. I had a idea that he might die, but I really thought he was gonna turn. And no, he really died. Allegedly, we really don't know. It seemed like he did. He turned into this kind of spaghettified little uh rip, you know. As soon as the door opened, he didn't even make it down the walkway. He just, as soon as the door opened, it just blip, 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 and that was the end of that. But what made that carry so much weight was the reactions from everybody in that room, from Loki to Sylvie, Morbius, OB, Casey, and Hunter B15. All of their reactions were like, wait, you know, it was like reality set in, it was that was that. It was well acted. I mean, beautifully acted, that particular scene. But the whole episode was beautifully acted. The star of this episode to me was Sylvie. Uh, Sylvie did a great job of getting her point across. Her back and forth with Morbius when he was like, okay, well, while they do that over there, let's go have some pie. And she just unleashed. She came unglued. you know, and the scene between her and Tom Hiddleston, aka Loki, in the little pie room and had their little back and forth. And that was a good performance. I mean, it was some good scenes here. I even like the scene with Brad and Drax in the little containment area and the back and forth they had. And the end results of Drax and her team by the hands of Renslayer and Miss Minutes. Oh my God, this was such a tense episode. There was so much death in this episode. there was so this probably was the biggest kill count in a Disney Plus Marvel show to date. I mean, it was a lot of death in this episode, especially if you want to count the very end that the multiverse exploded. So I mean, everybody died technically, so that's that. But yeah, man, this was just brutal. Um, Going back to Miss Minutes, look, the animators doing it, they doing God's work here. Uh, her reactions and when when Victor when they captured Victor Timely and brought him in their room, and Renslayer and Miss Minutes is in there, and this is Jonathan Majors, bro. He's he gonna see like, oh, it's like those were the last two people he expected to see, and his reaction was gold. He's like, oh, uh, I'm so happy you're here, and whole, the whole time Miss Minutes is standing there like, yeah, giving that look. She didn't say nothing. It was just that look she was giving. I was like, chef's kiss, man. Renslayer was brutal here. The whole episode she was in, to learn the truth of what happened. She finds out that he who remains wiped everybody's memory. And that was the little cliffhanger from last episode when Miss Minutes told Renslayer that, I got something to tell you, but you're not going to like it. So we open up this episode with her showing her what actually happened. And that sends her on this little vengeful warpath throughout the TVA. And Man, uh the scene that I was talking about from the first episode to now, in the first episode when Loki is time slipping and he has to get pruned in order to be brought back out by Morbius in the loom, and we see him get pruned. We see the scene where Sylvie is in the elevator and she's prying the door open, and Loki turns, looks at her, the phone is ringing, and all of a sudden he gets pruned from the back, but we never saw who pruned him, right? And so it kind of threw, at least to me, I forgot all about that. I never really questioned who pruned him, but they never showed it until this episode when that scene starts to play out in real time, and you like, wait, we don't know who pruned him, and we get that little clip, that little scene with the present time Loki is walking down the hall and he has the prune stick in his hand. And you're like, wait, he's the one who prunes himself when he time slips. It just fits so perfectly. And that explanation that he gave to Sylvie, he was like, look, uh, later on it's gonna make sense. I know it doesn't make sense right now, but I thought that was great as well. I mean, all around, just high marks for everybody in this episode. Did a phenomenal job. My only flaw I had with this episode was the end results of Renslayer. I didn't like how that played off, where she got pruned by a enchanted Brad. I That didn't make sense to me. I felt that was kind of unnecessary because they could have just, they being Loki and Sylvie, they could have just ran in there and overpowered uh Brad and Renslayer, and they they chose to enchant Brad, and the way he came in, it was just dumb. And then they just pruned Renslayer. That's a major character that they got rid of. Now, we all know, with watching this show for the past 2 seasons and watching anything Marvel related, people who you presume is dead 9 times out of 10 are not dead. I.e., we are watching a show called Loki, based on Loki, with Tom Hiddleston, who died about 4 times throughout the MCU. He died in the first Thor. He died in the second Thor. He died in Avengers Infinity War. I mean, the list goes on and on. The dude dies. He comes back a lot. Uh, and so nobody stays dead in the MCU, but except for Tony Stark, apparently. But anywho's, yeah, I just didn't like the way it happened. Now they could have killed off Renslayer. I wouldn't have had a problem. I just didn't like how they did it. It was kind of cheap to me. It was a cheap out, and it just didn't work. But besides that, I absolutely loved this episode. This was great. My daughter, she texted me when she watched it. She was like, "What kind of ending was that?" I was like, it was a fire ending. You got to understand the concept of a cliffhanger here. This is a cliffhanger. We have 2 more episodes. Trust me, it's not over. Even though it ended when you would think it's over. How are they going to fix this? And the loom exploded, or imploded rather. So this is going to be interesting these next 2 weeks. I want to see how all this plays out. But man, Loki is killing it, man. Loki is killing the game right now. This is truly, and I'm not a prisoner of the moment. This is the God honest truth. Loki is the best thing from Marvel in since Endgame. Honestly, it's better than WandaVision. It's better than Shang-Chi. It's better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And those are all good that I'm listing here. Those were good. And I'm talking Loki season 1 and 2 thus far. This is the best thing from Marvel since Endgame. I am enjoying this show. I would like to know, how are you enjoying Loki season 2 thus far with 2 more episodes remaining? Let me know by email, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. Look me up on all social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network. Look for the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube. Subscribe and like this video if you please. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Oh man, Loki, bro. Loki, this is good stuff, man. Please, Lord Jesus, don't allow Kevin Feige and all those in charge of this show mess up the next 2 episodes. Please don't mess up these last 2 episodes, because they are knocking it out of the park thus far. As always, not going to give a grade for this episode. We're waiting to the very end to grade the entire season as a whole. I will join you next week as we review episode 5. Can't wait to speak to you then. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everybody. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.